Even when I was 16 years old, I knew without a doubt that I wanted to study abroad when I was in college. Traveling has always been a passion of mine, and I'm extremely privileged to have a family that has made traveling possible for me. I first traveled to Rome during the summer after I graduated high school, and I immediately fell in love with the Eternal City. The sights, the history, the food, the people, just the way of life. So fast forward to a little less than 3 years later, when I saw that I had the opportunity to study art history abroad in Rome and to go back to the city that I loved, I was ecstatic. At the end of January 2022, I found myself on a plane from my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia, back to Rome. To be quite honest, I wasn't nervous. I love change and new experiences, so I was ready to take on the unknown and the unexpected. Arriving at my apartment for the very first time, I quickly realized how lucky me and my roommates were. We were living in the very center of the charming neighborhood of Trastevere, full of locals and lacking in tourists. 500 feet away was a piazza with a beautiful fountain seated in front of a breathtaking golden church. Living in that apartment and that very special neighborhood made my entire experience in Rome just that much sweeter. The streets were bustling at all hours of the day, and night for that matter, and I truly felt the meaning of la dolce vita there, the sweetness of doing nothing. I would sit on the steps of that fountain in front of that golden church just watching the Romans walk by. I would walk 2 blocks to the banks of the Tiber River and read for hours with the sun on my face. I was just happy to exist in that city. I made some of the dearest friends I had while studying in Rome. I instantly clicked with my roommates, and we shared so many special memories together. We traveled together, we scarfed down entire pizzas together, we visited museums together, and we walked around the city of Rome at night feeling like Romans ourselves. These girls impacted my experience more than they know, as it would not have been as special without them. Of course, I had class to attend and schoolwork to complete, but even those things which may be considered unenjoyable and tedious in a different setting, I reveled in because I was doing what I loved, learning about art. And there is no better place to learn about art than the villas, churches, and museums of Rome. I had class on site in many of these spectacular villas and galleries, viewing and learning about ancient, Renaissance, and contemporary art. Only in the Eternal City could you find this grand scope of art history. While I was living in Rome, I aimed to travel as much as possible. To Amsterdam, where I wandered around the Rijksmuseum by myself and walked along the famed Dutch canals. To Budapest, where I saw the mighty Danube for the first time and sailed it at night. To Edinburgh with my roommates, where we toured a historical castle and pretended to be wizards. To Lisbon, where I met up with my 2 best friends. We walked around a fortress still occupied by peacocks and listened to musicians with the Atlantic Ocean as a glittering blue backdrop. Then to Vienna, my most special trip, where I conquered the city for the weekend entirely on my own. I wandered through multiple museums, strolled through a palace garden, and saw my favorite painting in the world. To Paris for spring break, where I met up with my dad. We wandered around the great halls of the Louvre for nearly an entire day, saw the Eiffel Tower glittering at night, and walked around the charming and bustling streets of Montmartre. To Prague for Easter, where I peered up at the famed astronomical clock in the city square that looked to be out of a fairy tale, and walked along the Charles Bridge at sunset. To Tuscany with my mother, where we sampled Tuscan wines and drove along the rolling country roads. But as much as I cherished and delighted in these weekend getaways, I was always happy to be back in Rome. I felt like I was able to find myself in this city. I was fully independent, doing things on my own I never would have imagined I would have the confidence to do while at home in the US. I went to museums by myself, ate meals at restaurants by myself, and traveled by myself. I slowed down and saw the beauty and joy of little things, of seemingly mundane experiences. Having to leave Rome to come back to the US has been the most heartbreaking ordeal, to leave behind a city and friends that I hold so dear to my heart. But I will never forget the memories I made, the lessons I learned, and the stronger woman I've become from living and studying in Rome.